Good evening. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. Tech giant Huawei has emerged as a major point of contention between the US and China. Washington is now running a global campaign urging allies to abandon Huawei technology in exchange of US support. Now, the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has hailed the United Kingdom for their decision on Huawei and has congratulated Boris Johnson for having a clean 5G network.
We'll certainly take time to discuss the UK's commendable decision to ban Huawei gear from its 5G.
Uproot Huawei from next-generation mobile networks. The US National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, arrived in Paris on Monday for 3 days of talks with his counterparts from France, Germany, Italy and Britain. Washington even made it explicitly clear that 5G networks are on the agenda. Trump, in his recent press conference at the White House, even mentioned that he himself convinced many countries to not use Huawei.
We confronted untrustworthy Chinese technology and telecom providers. We convinced many countries, and I did this myself for the most part, not to use Huawei because we think it's an unsafe security risk. It's a big security risk. I talked many countries out of using it. If they want to do business with us, they can't use it.
And its recent actions in Hong Kong have now soured relations with the EU. EU member states have become increasingly doubtful about Huawei. A lot now is riding on Germany's stand on Huawei. If Berlin decides to give the go-ahead to the Chinese company, it would provide cover for smaller, less influential countries to adopt a similar approach. However, the German government is not expected to make Huawei poses a threat to India's national security, as we have mentioned extensively in our reports, and hence should be banned in the country. WION correspondent Simon Marks is live with us from Washington, D.C. for more on this. Good evening to you, Simon. Europe now finding itself in the middle of Washington's drive to uproot Huawei from the next generation.
Told no way they can play any kind of role in the development or rollout of 5G in the UK. The Secretary of State insisted that Britain had reached this decision all on its own. He pushed back against suggestions that American pressure and indeed the threat of American sanctions played a role in changing the minds of British lawmakers. But there is no question that here in the United States they view this decision by the government in London as a major win for the Trump administration's efforts to try and halt what about Huawei and the security risk that the US government argues the company poses to Europeans every time they pick up their mobile phone if it's involved in the 5G rollout. This is about the dramatic hardening of US attitudes towards China more broadly.
Absolutely. And as you...
President Trump have had a very rocky relationship, and she doesn't suffer him gladly at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether the Germans wander down a similar road. The Secretary of State said he's heading to Europe next week in the United States. We're 4 months away from a presidential election. We could be seeing an entire...